Alright, hello boys and girls, moms and dads. Welcome to HeroesMart Academy. This is 5th grade social studies, and we are going to be doing week number 12 part of the curriculum today. Week number 12 of this curriculum is going to be a review of the branches of the U.S. government. In prior levels, like in 4th grade and 5th grade, we talked about 4th grade and 3rd grade actually, we talked about the branches of the United States government. Now this is 5th grade. You're getting ready to graduate from elementary right now, so let's make sure we remember what we talked about. So what are the 3 branches of government? Well, can somebody tell me that? Legislative, executive, and the judicial. What's the legislative? Well, that's going to be the Congress, which is going to be made of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Alright, the executive will be made of the president and his or her cabinet. And then the judicial is going to be made of the courts, okay, the Supreme Courts for the most part. Alright, what stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? Well, in order to prevent a repeat of the tyranny similar to the one enacted by Great Britain, American founding fathers established the separation of powers and checks and balances. So those 2 terms are going to be really important to understand what makes one branch of government not too powerful and to get out of control. Well, they created these 2 terms over here called separation of powers and checks and balances. What's the meaning of separation of powers? Well, when they separate powers, there is something that the president can do, and then there is something that he cannot do. There is something that the judicial can do, and there is something that they cannot do. There is something that the legislative can do, and there is something they cannot do. So they separated these functions and these powers into these 3 pockets of these 3 branches of the United States government. The founding fathers came up with that concept because of the nasty experience they had with Great Britain. So we said we're not going to have a repeat of this in America, so let's separate powers into these 3 branches. And then another thing they did was to create a framework of checks and balances. Well, checks and balances will be a framework that makes one branch of the government to be accountable to the remaining 2 branches of the government. In other words, the presidency is going to be held accountable by the legislative and the judicial. The judicial is going to be held accountable by the presidency and the legislative. The legislative is going to be held accountable by the presidency and the judicial. So they call those things checks and balances. Alright? So those are critical facts that you want to make sure you retain in your memory, and hopefully the way I've talked about it right now is going to be easy for you to remember. Separation of powers and checks and balances. Alright, what are certain facts about the president? The president is in charge of the executive branch, but there are certain things he cannot do, and there are certain things he can do and should do. He carries out laws passed by Congress. Well, that lets us know that he cannot make laws by himself. Even though he can veto bills, he has certain powers to say, well, I'm just going to go ahead and do certain things if Congress is not acting. Or if they acted and they made stupid decisions, the president can veto some things, but all of those things are still within the boundaries of the proper checks and balances. If the 2/3 of the House of Representatives and 2/3 of Senate vote to pass an already vetoed bill, the bill becomes law again. So if the president were to wake up and say, well, I'm just going to veto all the bills that you guys passed, but then they take that bill to the Senate, they take that bill over to the House of Representatives, and 2/3 vote against the vetoed bill, well, the vetoed bill is going to be nullified, or the an already vetoed bill, or the vetoed bill is going to become law again. So if 2/3 of the Senate and 2/3 of the House of Representatives pass a vote on already vetoed bills, so a vetoed bill is a bill that was canceled by the presidency. Let's just think about it like that. The president said, well, I'm just going to cancel this bill, but then the legislative, they voted on it. Well, that vetoed bill can become law again. So you see, there are certain things that the president can do, and there are certain things that he cannot do. It's called checks and balances. Well, another thing that the president can do is the fact that he is the commander-in-chief of the military. He's the one that gives the military orders. The president is elected for a term of 4 years. The presidential election is held in the month of November. And the president also has the power to sign treaties with other countries and to select ambassadors to represent the United States all around the world. If the president can no longer serve, the vice president becomes the president. If the vice president can no longer serve, the Speaker of the House becomes the president. Alright, so we got a quiz for you. When you are watching this presentation, what is the name of the President of the United States of America? In 2023, the name of the President of the United States of America is President Joe Biden. Another quiz for you. What is the name of the Vice President of the United States of America? Well, the name of the Vice President of the United States of America in 2023 is Vice President Kamala Harris. Alright, but if you're watching at a later date, 2025 or whatever year you're watching, it's going to be all over the news. You are going to know the name of the president and the vice president. Alright, who makes federal laws? Well, that's the Congress. The Congress does that. Alright, the Senate and the House of Representatives, they do that. Alright, so thank you for joining me today. Please complete this homework to remember what we talked about today a little bit better. It's called the branches of the United States government. You are going to answer questions about some facts about the United States president, answer questions about the branches of the government. Just go ahead and write it down. As you write it down, it's going to stick to you a little bit better. Alright, so Genesis chapter 1 from verse 3 to 4. During the first day of creation, God said, let there be light, and there was light. Would you happen to know that the word light here refers to law and order? So God is the author of governments. Alright. Well, thank you, boys and girls, for joining me today. Remember, God cares about you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
I'll be your hero's buddy, and as you study with HeroesMart